Hello, today we are going to learn how to use the cloning and spot healing brush tools. So you're going to start in Teams, you're going to go to the assignments and find the cloning and spot healing brush tool practice assignment. Here you'll find instructions which say to use the cloning tool and spot healing brush tool to in image 1, you're going to free the monkey by cloning out the bars. Okay, so that is this one. Okay. In image 2, you're going to clean up the acne from the model's face. And in image 3, you're going to clone out the palm trees. Okay. So first off, you have to download these images, go to the 3 dots, and download. I'm going to ask you to start a new folder on your desktop. Okay, you're going to call that new folder. Here we go. Click on that. File, new folder. You're going to call it Cloning Practice. And this can go in your digital photography folder. Okay, I'm going to open this folder. Oops, file, new Finder window. Go to the downloads. And find the 3 images that I just downloaded. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Oops. Going back to Photopea. All right, now we are going to open, actually I'm going to start with number 2 because that is actually probably the easiest one. Okay, so I'm going to go to Open from Computer. I'm going to navigate to my desktop and find my, where is it? Cloning practice right there. Okay, so I'm going to start with image number 2. Okay, push Command 0 to make it fit the screen. Okay, all of the tools that we're learning today are destructive editing tools. That means that they are going to actually change the pixels. So if you save the image that way, the pixels are changed on that version forever. Of course, you can go back and re-download it again if you need to start over, but it's a really good idea to always do the most non-destructive editing techniques that you can. So unlike when we were adding our adjustment layers, the adjustment layers are non-destructive. They simply hover above the picture. When I add, for example, a levels layer, it hovers above the picture and it makes the picture look different, but it doesn't change the pixels. Okay, it just is kind of like this filter hanging over the top, and if I get rid of it, the change just goes away. So I can, as long as I save it as a PSD, then it's, it's easy enough to go back and change. But with the cloning tool and with the spot healing brush tool, we're actually just working right on the picture and it does change those pixels. So in order to make it less destructive, we're going to duplicate the background layer. So you're going to click on the background layer and drag it down to the make a new layer icon right here. All right, and we're going to be working on that background copy. That way you always have the original underneath. Okay. All right, so we're going over to our toolbar and we're looking for the, we're going to start with the spot healing brush. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes down. There are other brushes, tools underneath, but we're going with the spot healing brush. Okay. Up here, we can leave everything the way it is. Okay. we're going to change the size of our brush using the bracket tools on the keyboard, just like we always do. Remember to look at the letter P on the keyboard, and the right bracket makes the brush bigger, the left bracket smaller. So the spot healing brush is really easy to use. What you can do is make the brush just a little bit bigger than the acne, than the pimple, and you click on it and voila, it's gone. The tool kind of samples all of the other pixels around it and tries to make up what it thinks is going to be, the correct color to cover it up. So all you have to do really is go through and, you might need to make the brush smaller sometimes. If you want to get rid of freckles too, you can. And you're going to go through and just click on all of the pimples to get rid of them. Now, one thing you do have to worry about a little, or be a little more careful about, is when you have wisps of hair. Now, you could get rid of that hair, although sometimes when you get rid of something in a line like this, it shows up a little bit more. It looks a little more obvious that you did some kind of spot healing to it. So what I suggest is that you leave the wisps of hair and you make the brush nice and small and go right up to the edge of the hair and click. You don't want to go over the hair like this where there's a big chunk missing, because then it will be more obvious that you have cloned it. So over here, use the spot healing brush. On this one, I am going to go above and below. Okay. Probably need to get rid of this big spot right here first, and then I can do my best to get rid of that. Watch doubling. If you go over something too many times, or if you make the brush too big, you might get doubled images. There we go, that's better. You could also, we could get rid of the very end of the hair there. That's a possibility. Okay, so you're going to go through and finish this up and get rid of all of the acne. And then you can see it's only on the top layer. When I turn the top layer off with the eyeball, you can see the other layer underneath. All right, when you're finished with this, you can save it as, I'm going to save this as a PSD to save all of my layers. Okay, and I would, of course, need to come back and finish complete getting rid of all the rest of the acne. All right. So that is the first one. Next, we're going to go to the monkey. So we're going to go to Open Computer, go to Cloning Practice number 1, push Open. These images are a little bit small. They are from the internet. Okay. So this one is a little bit harder. What we're going to be doing is we're going to get rid of the bars that are in front of the monkey. So we're going to free the monkey. Okay, so on this one though, we're not going to be using the spot healing brush. The texture and various colors of the fur make it really difficult. It would not be a good choice. The spot healing brush would not be a good choice for this one. So we're going to be using the cloning tool instead. All right, so with the cloning tool, we're actually going to go to our brush up here in the options, and we're going to bring the hardness of the brush down. I'm going to bring it down to maybe about 30% hardness. Okay, and then the size, of course, we can take care of with the bracket tool. All right, now the blending mode can be normal, opacity, although sometimes you might want to bring the opacity down when you're cloning. For this one, we're going to leave it at 100%. We don't want it aligned, and we can make the source the current layer. Okay, so what we are going to do, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here, but what you're going to do, there are two steps to using the cloning tool. One is sampling a spot on the picture, and the other is stamping the clone, or stamping the thing you just sampled over the top of whatever you want to get rid of. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go very close. So I'm going to go over this part of the bars right here. So I want to go to the fur that's right next to it and put my cursor over that. I know it's a little hard to see once I put the cursor over the fur here. There we go. And now I'm going to go to my keyboard on the PCs that all of you have, your school laptops. You're going to push the ALT or the Alt key. If you are using a Mac, you're going to push the Option key. Okay, but most of you are going to push the ALT or the Alt key, which will change your cursor into this little plus. Okay, we can see that a little better. Get it in the place that you want to copy. Okay, and then you're going to keep your finger down on the Alt key, and then you're going to click with your mouse while you're holding that Alt key down. Okay, and you can see it made a little picture, okay, or a little copy of that section of the fur. All right, and I'm going to copy it, just stamp it right over. Now, one thing that kids think they should, they're like, oh, this is easy, I'm just going to stamp this over and over again. But a couple things you need to notice here. Number one, you get something I call doubling, where you get the same like highlight and shadow pattern over and over again, and it looks really fake. And of course, as I go down this way, the fur changes. So I don't want to use the fur from up here down here. All right, so I'm going to go back in the history palette. Okay, that first one was good. So I do a lot of resampling when I'm doing cloning. So I'm going to go next to this part of the bar, push the Alt key, click, and bring it over the top. And this way, if you sample often, then you are not going to get that doubling. Now, when you come to an edge like this, you have to sample it and then carefully kind of line it up. Now, I did get the edge of the bar there, so that probably wasn't the best place. Maybe what I'm going to do is go from up here and get some of the yellow and cover it up that way. So you have to kind of find the best way to cover it up. There we go. And sometimes you might have to use a smaller or a larger brush to get, a better cover for it. Okay. There we go. All right, and I'm going to now kind of go over this part, maybe just bring it over like that. All right. Okay, so as we go down, we want to, again, copy from right around where the bar is, making sure I don't catch any of that bar in my sample. There we go. Okay, so when we come to things like, on here I'm going down to get this other kind of fur, so I want the fur to kind of go the same way as the fur around it. Okay, when I come to something like this ear, this gets a little trickier. Okay, so I've got to make my brush smaller, because first off I have to try to copy the line of the ear and bring that line down. So I'm going to go up here to the edge of the ear, push the Alt key and click. And I've got that little line, so if I just kind of line it up with the other line from the ear, I can kind of recreate the edge of the ear. All right, and recreate that line there as well. Okay, and now I can kind of bring some of the bigger fur up. I'm going to use the bracket key tool here. I'm sorry, the bracket key to, whoops, that one doesn't look so good. If it doesn't look good, Command Z, always, it goes back one step. I'm sorry, probably on a PC it would be Control Z. Okay, so then you can continue on down the line getting rid of this part of the bar. And I like to kind of sometimes sample from above and below, and I can use a larger brush when I'm getting in these places that are all yellow. Okay, now the other problematic place that you're going to find is the nose. That can be really difficult. I've seen kids kind of obliterate the nose by not, what you have to do is recreate the nostril. Bring the nostril up over the bar. Okay, so I'm going to push the Option key and I'm going to go down to the dark part of the nostril here and so here's my line. I'm going to bring it up a little over the edge of the bar. Same thing on this side. There we go. All right, and now that I've recreated that, brought it up a little bit, now I can use the gray part, make the brush just a little bigger, and there we go. And if I get doubling, I can go back over with another part. If you go over it too much though, sometimes it gets a little bit kind of fuzzy looking. All right, so I'm going to go up here now and bring down this color. There we go. And then kind of recreate the edge of the monkey's nose there. Again, you sometimes have to kind of try it out and see where it's going to be best to sample from. Okay. All right, so that is so there the nose looks pretty good. Okay, and you just have to keep going and keep working on it until you get rid of all the bars. Okay, I might go over this one more time, give it a little more texture down here. There we go, just so it matches. Okay, so you're gonna I'm gonna save this as a PSD and come back to it later and finish it. All right. Now the next one, we're going to try using a selection tool. The selection tools allow you to select an area, and when you select an area, then whatever you do to the picture only happens in that area. So if we make a selection, our cloning will only happen within the boundaries of that selection. All right, now the Photopea is not quite as good at selecting as Photoshop. There's a reason Photoshop is a lot more expensive, because it is a really great, amazing program, and Photopea is pretty darn good for a free program. All right, but it doesn't always work as well as Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to start with duplicating our layer. Okay, and what we're going to try and do in this one is we are going to use the cloning tool, again, not the spot healing brush, to get rid of the palm trees that look like they're sticking out of this girl's head. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to select, well, we want a selection that goes right around her head. So we can either try to select her head, and then reverse the selection so that the sky is selected, or we can try to select the sky and then then we'll have the selection we want. Now in Photoshop, I've found that I usually select the girl's head, and that is a little bit easier. So I'm going to give that a try here. The selection tools are in the first three boxes below, that is below the move tool. So here we have rectangular select, elliptical select, We've got the lasso, polygonal lasso, and magnetic lasso tools. Okay, and then we have an object select, quick selection, and magic wand. So for us right now, we're going to go with the quick select tool. All right, and this is a new, when we look up here, we can choose the size of the brush. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 100% and at 15 right now. The mode, this is a new selection. This will be add to the selection, and this is subtract from the selection. Okay, so I'm going to pull it down. Okay, so it's a little hard to see. Okay, I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to start over here, okay, in the highlight of her hair, and I'm going to click and drag it down. And it selected, if you look very carefully, very closely, this is a little bit of a pixelated image, so let's see. You can see the dotted line, okay? Again, it's a little harder to see than in Photoshop, okay? But there is a dotted line, but it has also included the palm trees, okay? So I am going to go back to the quick selection tool and subtract from that selection. What I want to do is go to the edge and just kind of nudge it down a little bit. So you see how I'm kind of nudging that line down. And I hope this doesn't get frustrating because, again, it is not quite as easy as in Photoshop. But right now that did a pretty good job. Okay, it seems to be right along the edge of her hair right now. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Kind of nudge that selection down away from the palm tree and down to the edge of her head. Okay, so I need to add to because it kind of messed up the edge right here. All right. And again, it is not going to be as easy to do as in Photoshop. That one I'm having trouble with. I can also let's switch to the polygonal lasso tool. Because right here, there's a big chunk out of her head. I'm going to add to the selection. Okay, and then I'm going to, with the polygonal lasso tool, whoops, there we go, double click and it will, Command Z goes back one step. Okay, with the polygonal lasso tool, what I can do is click and drag. Okay, I can make straight lines, and when I come to the edge, it closes. Command Z. Okay, so now I have a fairly good selection around her head. Okay, and really all I need is this part right here by the trees and by this little bump that are sticking out of her head. Okay, so now I'm going to select the inverse because she is selected, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to choose a paintbrush, and I'm going to erase this right away. But let me show you. If I use the paintbrush and paint blue, when I'm painting up here, nothing happens. But then when I come here, it starts to paint because I have that, edge selected there. Only, anything within the selection, my tool will work. I'm going to push Command Z to go backwards. Okay, I'm going to select the inverse now. Okay, and now when I go up here, you can see it stops when I hit her head because I inverted the selection, so instead of her head being selected, the sky is selected. All right, so now we're going to go to the cloning tool. We want the edge to be, again, at about 30% hardness. And this is a little bit more difficult than it looks because the sky is a gradient. That means it starts out darker blue up here and it gets lighter as it goes down. So what you have to do is clone from this side and go in a straight line this way. Okay, so you have to kind of clone your way down. So I'm going to start up here and push the Alt key, the Alt key, and go across and cover this up. Now I'm not going to have to worry about doubling here so much because it is just blue sky without any like texture or detail. Alright, so now I'm going to push the Alt key and go this way. So I can kind of just use the same color. I don't have to resample quite as often. I'm going to resample over here though because it is a little bit further away from the other one. But I can generally use that color as I go all the way across. Okay, so now I'm going to come down a little more, sample, bring it across. Now notice if I were to sample up here, look how dark that is. That's why you have to sample in a line going straight across. Coming across this way and there. And I'm getting rid of some of that really pixelated stuff there. Again, you gotta go straight across, otherwise you're gonna get a big mess of splotchiness. Okay. Now, since I've gotten rid of some of the wispy parts of her hair, I have to get rid of all of it. There we go. Okay, so now if I go to select and go to deselect, now my selection is gone. Again, this selection is not quite as perfect as in Photoshop. It does look a little bit more rough here. So in the end, I might kind of go over this a bit to try and soften that. Again, I've got to kind of make sure I'm matching the color. When you use Photoshop, you will be able to get a much better selection. Okay. But, you know, at least this way, it did kind of, make it a little bit easier to get up to the edge. Even if I have to go back in and kind of soften the edge of this a bit. So this one is going to be a little more challenging with Photopea than with Photoshop. Okay, so when you are done kind of softening this edge, whoops, be careful not to make sure you've got the matching blue. Okay, but once you're done, you can save this as a PSD so that you have, there we go. Okay, so, and here we go. Here is the palm tree, and I'm turning off the cloned layer, and you can see the palm trees underneath, and that's the cleaned up version. All right, so I'm going to go to File and Save as PSD. Okay, there we go. All right, so this time I would like you to turn this in on the assignment. Okay, so you're going to go to, now my version looks a little bit different than yours, but you will go to the assignment and go to the turn in button, and I want you to upload your 3 pictures that you created. Okay, and yeah, go ahead and upload them as PSDs so that I can see how you did. All right, good luck, and let me know if you have questions.